Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the Cincinnati Bengals being able to keep their season alive as they defeated the Dallas Cowboys. We'll discuss the Rams. They defeated Buffalo in an epic shootout, 44 to 42 shootout. We'll talk about the Chiefs scraping past the LA Chargers. Interesting game there with the doink heard all around the world. We'll talk about tomorrow's NBA Cup quarterfinals. We have two of those: the Orlando Magic taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, while the Dallas Mavericks take on the Oklahoma City Thunder. So this is the first time we have actually quarterfinals at the NBA Cup. This is the first edition. Last year went straight to the semis, so that's going to be interesting. And then please stick around for the end of the show. I'll be giving you my reaction to Chelsea coming back from 2 goals behind to defeat Tottenham this weekend at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Amazing game there. Before we start off, if you have a question during the show, we want to hear your input. Is a big part of what makes the show successful, and we thrive on your energies and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, please don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. And if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Just use the super chat button at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your super chat gets read on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We really rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can always go to the gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, or leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We have to start off though with the Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals keep their season alive as they beat the Dallas Cowboys in a good old school battle. We saw some defenses. Both defenses play a really, really good game, despite Cincinnati's defense being pretty weak this season. What they did in this one, limiting Cooper Rush in that Cowboys offense. So let's just zoom through the turning point of this game, and it was an interesting back and forth game. Nobody really had a tight grip in this game throughout the entire game. It was really nip and tuck, back and forth. Cincinnati went in with a 7-point lead. Cowboys had a great third quarter drive to respond, to enter the fourth quarter level, and then on it really, the fourth quarter was a little bit of a tug back and forth sort of game, which both teams were really struggling to take the game by the scruff of the neck. Then the Cowboys came up with what I believed was going to be the game-winning potential stop. I thought late in the game, they were able to get Joe Burrow off the field on third down, and send the Bengals punting crew on the field. And I'm thinking, wow, the Bengals have seen this situation just play over and over and over again. The Cowboys are gonna get the ball back, they're gonna lead a drive, and they're just gonna win the game. And it's really that's what has happened in Cincinnati. They've just always been on the wrong side of it. They had penalties as well on that right before that punt that that limited their opportunities to get the first down. There was a hold on Micah Parsons that pushed him back on second down to make it 3rd and 20, and then they eventually got the sack on 3rd and 20. The Cowboys, Now the Bengals are punting right after the 2-minute warning. 2 minutes left in the game. Bengals getting ready to punt back to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys. And the Cowboys block the punt. And in that moment, you're thinking, wow, okay, this is a chance. Now Cowboys are going to get the ball in really good position. But for some reason, Leon Lett 2.0 happened yet again with the Dallas Cowboys. And this time, the infamous Leon Lett was none other than his name is mistaken in my mind. Number 27 of the Cowboys. I'll figure that out real quick. I had it written down. Oh yes, Amani Uruwarie. Amani Uruwarie. Instead of letting the ball go, he ends up touching it, and he ends up touching it at the 40-yard line. And once the ball got blocked, but it didn't get blocked enough to where it went back the other way. The punt got tipped, where it completely changed the trajectory of the punt. It became a 10-yard. It got blocked into essentially a 10-yard punt. But what happened was Uruwarie decides to try to pick it up, and he doesn't get proper control of the ball. The ball comes free. Cincinnati recovers it at the 41, and that allowed the Bengals to get their offense back on the field there, because it's a first down for Cincinnati. Because the rule is, if the ball passes, even if it's blocked, if the ball passes the line of scrimmage, and you muff it, the other team can recover it for possession. And that's exactly what happened. In that moment, what should have happened was that everybody in the Cowboys, you should have cleared. Clearly, Uruwarie didn't understand that. He decided to go for the ball, doesn't properly control it. Bengals take it over. And you got to think about it. It's such a game-changing play. The Cowboys did everything right on the special teams play. I mean, first of all, the Cowboys defense gets them off the field. Then they get the block, which should be a positive for the Dallas Cowboys. The block should be a positive for the Dallas Cowboys. But not only they didn't it should be a positive, because it should allow Cowboys to now get the ball on a short field. But not only did the Cowboys not get the ball on a short field because of the muffed, but the Bengals ended up getting a first down in great field position to what they go on to do a few plays later, and that is score a touchdown. And on the touchdown came first down. It's my man Deron Bland. He's playing soft coverage against Jamar Chase, which, I don't mind. You don't want to get beat over the top, especially because they're man on that side. But what happens is, when you're playing soft on Jamar Chase, and you leave yourself susceptible to what happened. Joe Burrow, nice little timing out route to Jamar Chase on his inside shoulder that allows him to break. Or not even break a tackle, to get past Deron Bland and score the touchdown of the run after the catch. And that play, timing is important. Recognition from the quarterback, making sure that the Deron Bland has no chance to play the ball, because this is something that Joe Burrow talked about after the game, that he works all the time with Jamar Chase, this timing inside shoulder throw, in order for Jamar Chase to be able to do something run after the catch, because it allows him, when you throw the ball on his inside shoulder, his momentum is taking him towards inside the numbers, which allows him to cut up field. You really, in the out route, you're supposed to, or not supposed to, but most of the time you try to lead the player to the sideline, because you leave it inside and you give the corner an opportunity to trump that ball. Usually with the out route, you want to throw it enough to the sideline where it's either the wide receiver or it's going out of bounds. But obviously Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase developed this connection, this timing throw. And I still think it's a little bit of a risk there because, well, if Deron Bland decides to jump it, and if he sees it coming, he reads it, well, he's going the other way. But Deron Bland is playing a little soft. He doesn't recognize that play is coming. Then he takes, in my opinion, a pretty bad angle, trying to get at Jamar. Jamar cuts up inside, completely breaks it, and then from there on, it's just simple. Ain't nobody catching Jamar Chase. And by the way, Jamar Chase, phenomenal game. He finished with 14 receptions for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaged 12.6 yards a reception. Joe Burrow, he did what he has done all season, 33 of 44, 369 yards, 3 touchdowns, had an interception. And the crazy thing is, I thought the Bengals defense wasn't, for the standards that they're showing this season, played a good game. Overall, they limited what Cooper Rush production. He had a bad interception. He was 16 of 31, 183 yards for 2 touchdowns and an interception. Rico Dowdle, he was able to get it going, 18 carries for 131 yards, but it never broke the Bengals defense. Yeah, the Bengals defense bent because of the production that Dowdle was getting, but he never broke them, and they were able to keep the Bengals in the game despite the offense not playing to the level that we've seen them so far this season. But the offense still was able to get it done when it mattered the most on the last drive, and that's all that matters, quite frankly. But it's still going to require a miracle for Cincinnati to get into the playoffs at 5-8. It's highly unlikely. Let's just look at it just statistically. You're battling out in the AFC, which you have to catch up to either a 8-5 Denver Broncos team or an 8-5 Chargers team or an 8-5 Ravens team. And the Ravens, Chargers have tiebreakers over the Bengals. So realistically, the playoffs is just not going to happen. It take a major miracle. But it was still good for them to, get the victory as they, try to stay alive as long as they can. As far as the Dallas Cowboys, obviously I think this is a bigger loss for the Cowboys than it would have been for the Bengals. I thought the Cowboys had a higher possibility of being able to get into the postseason before this one. Now their season is also, it's been gone for a minute, but there's still always that hope. They won their last 2 games, and actually the game that they beat against they beat the Commanders was actually a pretty big game, because if they were going to get into the playoffs and sneak into a wild card position, it would be at the hands of a Commanders team, and they would have, they'd have the Commanders left to play later on this season as well in Week 18, and and they already have the win now over the Commanders, so the tiebreaker is favoring them as long as they can take care of that Week 18 Commanders game. They could have put themselves in a position where they would have been battling for a playoff spot in Week 18, but yeah, we're not going to get that anymore. And it's a shame for the Cowboys because, they play Carolina next. That's a winnable game. Tampa Bay, they're a good team, yes, but it's not impossible. Then you take on the Eagles, which you never know what happened. It's a division rivalry. And then the Commanders, and then that would have been probably the game to decide it. But that's all wishful thinking. This Cowboys team have no business being in the playoffs. We've seen how stinky they've been this season, and yeah, for a game that came in with 2 teams, not the biggest expectations for the rest of the season. I thought I was thoroughly entertained, but it's the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they're always gonna entertain you, whether it's them getting on the right or wrong side of the win-loss column. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss the Los Angeles Rams defeating the Buffalo Bills in an epic shootout.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed the Bengals keeping their season alive as they defeated the Dallas Cowboys. We move on to discuss the Los Angeles Rams. They defeated the Buffalo Bills in an epic showdown this past Sunday, and it was a great game. It was a great offensive showcase from both teams. I mean, both quarterbacks both played a hell of a football game. Josh Allen, ridiculous, had 6 total touchdowns. He went 22 of 37, 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. He carried the ball though for 10 carries, 82 yards and 3 touchdowns. 5 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown for Khalil Shakir as well. Matt Stafford, 23 of 30 for 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua had himself a monster game, 12 receptions for 162 yards and a touchdown. That big touchdown late in the ball game to seal the deal, I guess, for the Rams, to give them a 2-possession lead late in the fourth quarter. And it was a sensational ball game. We got to see a lot of offense. I thought the Rams were pretty comfortable throughout a duration of the game. The Bills did really well coming back from down 17. They made it as close as a 3-point game late in the fourth, which was really, really impressive. How, despite how they were down 17, that they didn't miss a beat on, the head didn't drop and they didn't cave in. They continued to fight late and they got themselves back into it. So not only did they fight, but they got themselves back into it. But again, the defense let them down in this one. In an alarming way, honestly, the defense let them down. And I'm not saying it should be overly alarming, because this is not they haven't sent an example for, this sort of defensive displays this season. I thought as a unit defensively, they've been, solid. Not a great defense, but a solid defense that, and in this one, they just couldn't get the stops and they couldn't stop the bleeding. I mean, it seemed like, especially in that, earlier on in the game, it seemed like for every time Buffalo scored, Rams came back and scored twice. And then, down the stretch, the Bills are able to make it a 3-point game through the touchdown of Mac Hollins. That last drive, the drive that ends up with the Puka Nacua touchdown, the Rams just don't do enough to, the Bills, they just can't get that stop. The Rams were able to chew up so much clock. They couldn't stop Nacua. They got the Rams in a 3rd and 17. And the Rams are able to pick up 12 yards or so, make it a 4th and 5. Sean McVay decides to go for it. Why? I really have no idea. I wasn't a huge fan of that decision, but it turns out to work out, despite, there was a false start on that right tackle, should have been called. But they end up getting the first down. I believe it was, who was it that caught it? Yeah, it was 2-2, right? Yeah, 2-2 Atwell ends up picking up that first down. Then the Bills do a good job of getting them to a third down again, 3rd and 5 this time. And then it's a little bubble screen to tunnel screen to Puka Nacua. Bubble screen, tunnel screen, whatever you want to call it. Cooper Kupp with a great block. The Rams right tackle does a great job getting to the edge as well to be able to block Teron Johnson. And Nacua has a bunch of green grass ahead of him to the end zone. And then it's a 2-possession game with 1:54 remaining, and yeah, it's over. I think they ended up blocking the PAT attempt as well. So it's actually 35-44 game, but still, it's over. The Bills were able. Something got in my eye. The Bills were able to get a late touchdown to make it interesting to force the onside kick attempt. By the way, there was a questionable decision as well by Sean McDermott on that drive as well to go quarterback sneak, with a minute and some change remaining when you need a touchdown and an onside kick, to win the game, and they end up getting they eventually end up getting in. Onside kick comes with a minute remaining. And, the Rams recover. And the Bills actually had 3 timeouts, so they forced the Rams to run the ball. Eventually, they got it down with about 4 seconds. Rams essentially punted the ball game away. Game over. They win, and it's a big win for the Los Angeles Rams to go up to 7-6 because, the Seahawks were able to defeat the Arizona Cardinals again. So now the Seahawks are starting to slip away in the West. They're still only a game ahead of the Rams. They're only 2 games ahead of the Cardinals, Niners. And yeah, I think what the Rams did in that is, they closing the gap with Seattle, or they kept the gap within a game. By the way, the Rams have the tiebreak over the Seattle as of right now. So that's a fact too. But what they also did was they made that Rams-49ers game, because the Niners are also coming off a big blowout win over the Bears. Completely destroyed the Bears. They were up 24-0 at halftime. Coming off that game, it makes that Thursday night game epic. I think that game really decides which is the team that is gonna battle it out with Seattle for that division. That game is a huge game. Can be a momentum turning game for both teams. I think the Rams, they've been inconsistent this season. This is a team, they beat the Buffalo Bills, who are sitting second in the AFC, but they've also lost to some pretty wild teams, I have to say, in my opinion. Losing to the what's it called? The Miami Dolphins, which is not wild, but losing to the Miami Dolphins, losing to the Bears, the way that they just got outran by the Eagles. The way they got destroyed by the Cardinals earlier this season. Now, a lot of that has to do with injuries, and they have been injury riddled this season, but their performances have been lacking. It took that late winner to get that touchdown, to get the win over the Saints as well. A Saints team that's also not that great. The Rams have been pretty inconsistent. I think they have, they can lose to, some bad teams, but they can also beat some really, really good teams. They have that unpredictability with them. As far as Buffalo, yeah, it's disappointing because, now, that loss, that loss for me essentially means you can kiss the number 1 seed goodbye. The Bills also have Detroit to play next week. We know what Detroit is. I think that number 1 seed is, kind of go to the Chiefs, who, as we'll kind of discuss in the next segment, won again. And, big loss. But I think Josh Allen, he's continued to make his MVP case. I mean, 6 touchdowns is ridiculous. I do have to say, though, we can be sympathetic over Josh Allen and all this, but there was moments where he could have stopped the bleeding, and he did a lot. He did too much, actually. He did a great game. He had a great game, but it's kind of the same thing as the Chiefs divisional round game, where he did everything he can, but he just couldn't get over the line. And, sometimes you have to do even more than everything you can, going up against great quarterbacks. And it just seems like he's always coming short in the big moments. And sometimes it's not his fault. Sometimes I can blame him. Like, I'll blame him for the Kansas City Chiefs game last year. I believe he didn't play to the level that we seen him play. Like this season, he wasn't that player in that divisional round. Sometimes, that Cincinnati game as well, the year before they got eliminated, sometimes his performances drop in the playoffs in certain big games. And then sometimes it's not his fault, but the common denominator is he's not doing enough to get over the line. Whether you want to say he had this amount of stats and he scored this amount of points, the common denominator is that he hasn't done enough. He hasn't been able to get over the line, And at the end of the day, if the Rams score 42 or 44, Josh Allen, you got to score 45. If the Chiefs score, what was it in that AFC Championship game? What was the score? It was, or the AFC divisional game. It was 42-36. If the Chiefs score 42, Josh Allen, you got to score 43. Sometimes you have to go above and beyond, and he's never proved that he can do that. Quite frankly, I mean, I'm not trying to be a contrarian or anything, but y'all can give him the MVP, but I still think he's in there. He's pretty overrated. But that's my hot take of the day, I guess. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss the Chiefs scraping past the LA Chargers.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed the Rams defeating Buffalo in an epic shootout. We move on to discuss the Kansas City Chiefs. They defeated the LA Chargers in another tight, could have gone either ways, ball game. And again, of course, it's the Chiefs that end up getting on the right side of that 19-17 win, game-winning field goal kick by Nick Remigigo. No, not Nick Remigigo. By Matthew Wright. And that one happened. The game-winning field goal happened to come off the upright and go in, and it's defined this season for Kansas City. That's a good way to define this season for Kansas City. Just always being able to get on the right side of it. They're 12-1, but if you look at most major media outlets, the overall consensus is, in terms of things to say about them, is pretty negative. It's words like vulnerable, limited, beatable. But this is a team that's been unbeatable this season. They're 12-1. The one loss came against a Buffalo Bills team that's sitting second in the AFC. And they've already wrapped up the division now, December 10th, which is a good accomplishment for them. And they're well on their way to having that number one seed probably wrapped up even before week 18, which is insane. But the way that they performed this season and how they're still 12-1 is still crazy to me. And this is what happens when you build a championship DNA, a championship culture. It gives you that belief that even when you're uncomfortable, you're comfortable, and you always believe that you'll have enough to keep it close within the last 2 minutes. And then once you get there, you have Patrick Mahomes, while the rest, they have everybody else. And you always have the confidence that y'all get it done. And whatever it would have took in that last drive, if Kansas City needed to go down and score a touchdown, they would have gotten that touchdown done. It's just the pedigree and the DNA of this Kansas City Chiefs team. They have developed in this dynasty. They have developed into this world powerhouse offense that just had so much speed and electricity that you just couldn't stop that high motor offense, to a team that relied on its defense last couple of years, to now a team that just has grit, has determination, just has the ability to keep it close. And when they keep it close, they're always able to get on the right side of the line. And the development of this Kansas City team has been quite incredible, what they've become. And yeah, the offense is lackluster. There's a lack speed. They're not explosive. The offensive line is not good enough, quite frankly. The run game is very mediocre. But they have Patrick Mahomes, and despite the fact that they can't protect Patrick Mahomes, he's still able to make plays, whether it's in the pocket, out of the pocket. He makes enough plays to win every game. And the defense, has slipped in moments here and there, but overall they've had a solid this season defensively. What the defense has allowed them is to be in the ball games late in the games. So consistently be in it in the last 2 minutes, and then once you're in a tight-knit ball game in the last 2 minutes, well, it just completely changes everything. Once you're in a tight ball game in the last 2 minutes, it just completely changes, everything. Because Kansas City, they have that pedigree, they have that belief, and yeah, it's disappointing for the LA Chargers. I thought they left some points off the field as well. They had a few offensive plays where little things go one or two ways different. They get a blocking up correctly, or the execution is just a little bit better. They're able to create, to have more, And the thing with Kansas City is, with Kansas City, when you have your moments to extend, to stretch the lead, you have to take advantage of those moments. If you keep Kansas City in the game, they will get you. What Buffalo did, the one loss Kansas City had, is what Buffalo did is they were able to extend their lead. They were able to get it to a 2-possession lead late in the game, in which even though Mahomes was getting the ball back, was getting the ball back with, 2 minutes remaining, chasing a 2-possession lead. It was just not practical. And the Bills ended up winning that game. You have to You have to take advantage of the opportunities they come. I thought the Chargers offense started way too lackluster. And they had that great third quarter and they looked like a completely different team. But when you're that lackluster in that first half, when you're down to the Chiefs 13-0 at halftime, it makes it, you have to have an unbelievable third quarter to put the game away so it doesn't get to the moments where it's a 2-minute game and it's a one-possession game. You don't want it to get there. But with how lackluster that offense is, how the lack of production, the lack of execution, it's just unfortunate. And it's interesting also as well with the Chargers. With the Chiefs. It just seems like every game's the same thing. I mean, the Chiefs. You could replay this game over and over again, and I would have thought it was a different game from the season because the story is pretty much the same. I mean, you go all the way back to the slip by the Isaiah Likely touchdown for the Ravens with his toe out of bounds to potentially send that game to overtime. The fourth and 17 or something crazy like that, whatever, fourth and long pass interference with Cincinnati, that Falcons game with what happened there. It's just over and over again, the same little things. Even the last week, the Raiders game, how that ended. It's a skill. Look, I'm not here to say it's luck. Luck is when it happens once or twice. This is something that's been consistent probably over the past 2 seasons now, going back to last year's playoff run. This situation where Kansas City is able to stay in ball games late enough to where they can allow Patrick Mahomes to decide it late is something that they did last year in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl as well. I mean, they were dominated by the 49ers in the first 3 quarters of that ball game. But it was little moments where they kept themselves in the game, getting a muffed punt, making key stops when the defense needed to make a key stop, and giving the ball back to Mahomes in overtime to lead a winning touchdown drive. And this season, it's not luck what they're doing. This is a skill at this point. It's an extremely valuable skill, and it's a skill that makes me really hesitant to choose anybody else to win the Super Bowl this season, because if anybody was going to get the Chiefs, it was last season after they started off poorly by their standards, 8-4 through the 12 games. They're 12-1 now. 12-1. I mean, I'm just going to call it as I see it. I don't see how the Chiefs, don't win the Super Bowl. And it's unfortunate because I'd rather have anybody else win at this point. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will do a preview of tomorrow's NBA Cup quarterfinals.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed the Chiefs scraping past the Chargers. We'll move on to preview tomorrow's NBA Cup quarterfinals. For the first time ever, we get quarterfinals in the NBA Cup. So the NBA Cup was introduced last season as the in-season tournament. this time around we're calling it the Emirates NBA Cup, and we have quarterfinals, which I'm happy about this, that we'll have quarterfinals, because this gives it more of a tournament, feel to it with quarterfinals. And the fact that the games are going to be played in the stadiums, in the home stadiums, OKC getting a home game, Milwaukee getting a home game in these quarterfinals, I think it's great because you get more of an atmosphere like that. I didn't like it last season when they had the semifinal and the final at T-Mobile Arena, because the atmosphere was pretty dead. At least from I wasn't there, but at least from hearing it while watching it on TV, it wasn't electric. I didn't like the atmosphere at all. I thought it was a pretty dead. Now the games ourselves, like especially the Pacers Lakers game, that game was really, really good. I enjoyed that final. But overall, it was pretty abysmal, the atmosphere, and the fact that at least in the quarterfinals we get the home arenas atmosphere. I'm looking forward to that. And you have some there's some games to be excited over. I think Warriors Rockets will be very interesting tomorrow. The Magic Bucks, Maverick Thunder tomorrow, but we're gonna stick to the Magic Bucks and Maverick Thunder. We'll preview the other two games tomorrow. As far as the Orlando Magic taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, so the Magic right now are sitting third place in the East. The Bucks are sitting sixth place, but they're 8-2 in their last 10 games, and they're finally starting to pick up some positive momentum after a horrendous start to their season. And they just got Chris Middleton back from injury as well recently. And that's a big impact. I thought he had a big impact late in the game in their victory over the Nets yesterday. And down the stretch, he only had 11 points, but I thought he made some timely buckets here and there. And he's only played 2 games, and it's gonna be slow to get his rhythm going. Hopefully he can use this big stage to get on the right track. The Orlando Magic, they got in as a wild card team. They finished second in their group. They got completely destroyed by the Nets in that final game. But what they did was make sure that they didn't lose by 37 points. That allowed them to get into a wild card over the Celtics with their point differential. And yeah. So yeah, now the Magic have to go away to the Milwaukee Bucks. Go away to the Milwaukee Bucks for that one. I'm interested to see whether or not Chris Middleton can finally make 11 points in the first 2 games. Not great, but it was always gonna take him a while to come back from the injury he suffered. But I feel like this is an opportunity. I think we can expect potentially a semi big game from Chris Middleton, a re-announcing game that he's fully back and ready to be an important part of a front three containing Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Chris Middleton. I also think Damian Lillard is an extremely clutch player in this winner go home sort of moments down the stretch. I expect Damian Lillard to not be afraid and to come up with the big necessary plays. I feel like the ball will be in his hands late game if it's a close game situation. I definitely expect the Orlando Magic to be able to keep it close. Franz Wagner, he's had a really good season this year. he's averaging 24.4 points a game. You know, he started off he also had a very, very good season or very, very good start to last year's season. Dipped off a little bit later on, but this is a guy, he steadily improved in his career, starting off at the 15.2 point per score, then brought it up to 18.6, then brought it up to 19.7. Now he's averaging 24.4 points a game, you know, shooting from 46% from the field. He can make a real impact on a ball game. Franz Wagner can. And, you know, this is a Magic team that's out, that has been without Paolo Banchero for a major stretch of the season. And Paolo Banchero, I have to say, he's had a really good year this season. He's averaging 29 points per game on 49.5 shooting. So the fact that the Magic has been able to do what they can, you know, with Banchero being out, still being up to the third seed is great. Now the frustrating thing is the fact that you're not going to have Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner in this game. Franz Wagner suffered a torn right oblique and he's out for a while now. That is a shame. That is a shame, because that's your two big plays. Two big players, and now the Magic are going to be really reliant on their depth in this one, in a high stake environment. Yeah, that's gonna be rough. You know, you're missing your two best players. You're taking on the big three of, you know, Giannis, Damian Lillard, and Chris Middleton. You know, that's frustrating. That is frustrating. The winner of this game will move on to take on the Knicks-Hawks winner in the semifinal. And look, the Magic, despite the injuries, they've been able to prevail and they've been able to push through all the adversity. And Milwaukee, it's not going to be an easy game for Milwaukee. And the Magic, they play some good defense. Even with Wagner this season, they've been one of the lower scoring teams in the NBA. Now they're not going to have Wagner, whose averages 24.4 points a game. They're going to be a little weaker in terms, but their defense is still really, really good. They'll make it difficult for the Bucks. You know, they won't give the Bucks easy offense. So yeah, look, I'm favoring Milwaukee because of the clutchness of Damian Lillard. I struggle to think how Magic can slow down Giannis, even with how good they are defensively. And overall, Bucks being at home is going to be an impact. It's going to have an impact. But I think the Magic will be able to keep it close. But overall, I just think the Bucks will prevail. The Mavericks taking on OKC. Wow, that one is going to be a really, really good one. The Mavericks started off the season pretty, not great, but they've been able to climb back to the fourth seed. They're 9-1 their last 10 games. They're one of the hottest teams in the league. OKC, they're sitting pretty right now, top of the Western Conference, 18-5. They've really come into their own this season. I think the addition of Alex Caruso is going to do wonders for that team. You get a player that can do that little bit of everything. And yeah, he's only averaging 5.8 points a game, but I think that's a player that will come good because of all he can do. And he had a really good game, by the way, at the Pelicans, dropping 14 points, was 6 of 7 from the field, 2 of 3. He's been shooting pretty poor this season, 26.7% from 3-point range, but this is a player that gives you that little bit of everything, and it's a good presence. I thought it was a good trade to get him because Giddey didn't help them right now. I think Caruso helps them more right now in terms of being that extra piece that can make a difference. And then the addition of Harvenstein, I mean, that was the one thing that they were missing, that big Isaiah Harvenstein, and he's been out for a while this season. He's slowly getting back, getting more minutes. his presence to match up with Chet Holmgren, who is an unbelievable player, and he's been injured for a while now. It seems like he has still a little bit left to return. There was potentially there was an update on the status pre-Pelicans game. He's not going to be available for that Cowboys game or for that Mavericks game. But still OKC, they have that great depth, extremely really good depth. They still have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They still have Jamal. Technical difficulties there. They still have technical difficulties. Sorry. They still have Jalen Williams. They still have Jalen Williams, J-Dub, who's averaging 22 points a game, shooting 39% from three. He's able to hold his own as that second piece next to SGA with Holmgren out. SGA, we know what he is. He's continuing on an MVP caliber last season with another MVP caliber this season, 29.8 per game, 50% field goal percentage. I just love for a player that can score the way he does, how efficient he is and how consistent he is. And consistency will do you wonders. Will do you wonders as a franchise player. He's very, very, very consistent, and his consistency and his ability late game situations where you give him the ball and he has any shot in his arsenal, that mid-range is really hard to stop. You play close up in the mid-range, you give him an opportunity to, get to the hole. He has the ability to get to the hole. What he can do in late game because of that mid-range makes him so deadly, and it makes the Oklahoma City Thunder so deadly. The Mavericks, they're starting to figure it out. This team is starting to look pretty deadly. Luka having himself a great game against Toronto, getting 30 points, 30-point triple-double. Kyrie as well. He's been averaging 24.3 points this season. He's shooting at an efficient range this season, 47% from three. They're just matching up. Him and Luka are just fit together like peanut butter and jelly. It's just perfect. That guard combination. Defensively, they're much improved from what they were earlier this season. Offensively, they look like they have more cohesion. It seems like Jason Kidd is starting to finally figure out this new team. That was an improved team from last season, but that took a little bit of time to gel. But now they have to go away to Oklahoma. Mavericks, they don't have a problem going away to Oklahoma. They got a few wins last season in the playoffs. The Mavericks did get past OKC to win. Now, a lot of that to do with OKC's experience, a lack of big. Now they have Harvenstein to limit the production of a Derek Lively or a PJ Washington. So I want to see, does the addition of Harvenstein make it easier for the OKC Thunder to deal with Gafford, Washington, Lively, and how do they how do they limit Washington without the presence of Chet Holmgren as well? That's what I'd like to see. And overall, I'm just so excited to see Luka and Kyrie go up against SGA and J. Will, on this big stage. And I'm looking very, very forward to it. A short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss Chelsea coming from 2 goals behind to beat Tottenham. before the break, we discussed the tomorrow's NBA Cup quarterfinals. We move on to discuss Chelsea. They came from 2 goals behind to defeat Tottenham in an epic comeback for Chelsea. They went 2 goals down within the first 11 minutes, and you're thinking, uh-oh, is this one of those days for Chelsea where they just couldn't get on the right foot, and then Tottenham is able to dominate the game, as Tottenham has been able to do a lot this season. They've been able to dominate a lot of teams, but haven't got the right side of the result. And Tottenham, majority of the games this season, they have outpossessed teams, they've created more chances than them, and they've just played a better game than them. They haven't always won the games. They've been very mediocre this season in terms of results, but in terms of performance, they played some really, really good football. I think the most impressive thing about Chelsea was that Chelsea were the better team in stretches of this game. In overall, Chelsea played the better football game. They controlled more possession. I thought they created more opportunities, especially past the first 12 minutes or so. And yeah, Jadon Sancho and Enzo Maresca, he does a lot of tinkering. And this time it was Sancho came in, and Sancho making that immediate impact, scoring that and goal in the 17th minute to cut the lead and shift the momentum back to Chelsea, who it took them a while to get that second goal through that penalty with Cole Palmer. But you're watching this and you're seeing the Chelsea team always have a belief that they're going to get back into the game, that they're going to be able to get that goal. And eventually it came, and the confidence just started oozing. You saw the players start making more forward runs, started playing a little bit more desire to go get the win rather than fear of losing the game. And the confidence and the swagger was so exuberant, and they got that second goal. Then eventually, whenever you played the way you play, you eventually get a little bit, lucky moments here and there. A deflection gets right into the path of Enzo Fernandez to strike a really good finish to make it 3-1. Then they earned that second penalty as well. Took advantage of bad defending yet again to make it 4-2. Eventually, Son Heung-min scores that late goal to make it 4-3. But yeah, Chelsea just played a really, really good game, really good comeback for them. As far as Tottenham, Tottenham are a really good example of how style of play doesn't translate to winning. Because if you want to make it style of play just based on attraction, Tottenham play the best football in the league. But they're sitting 11th, and they've lost 7 games, and they've conceded 19 goals this season because they're pretty open defensively. And they, and despite having a lot of possession and having a lot of the ball in dangerous areas, sometimes they lack that cutting edge. And yeah, when you have a combination of those two things, even if you play good, attractive football, you're sitting in 11th place in the Premier League. And yeah, that's just a harsh reality. It's Spursy. But thank you guys, though, for tuning into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go.